Hi, welcome to Just Another Army Vet 2.0, where I make all Indian content. I have another channel called Just Another Army Vet, where I make all military and defense. Those of you who are new, I'm Kylie. I'm a former combat medic for the U.S. Army. Today's video comes from the channel Bayrat Hussain, and it's all about the Kargil War. This is the 50-Day War, Episode 6. Let's get to it.
Dearest Papa, Mama, Birdie, and Granny, by the time you get this letter, I'll be observing you all from the sky, enjoying the hospitality of the Apsaras. I have no regrets. In fact, even if I become a human again, I'll join the army and fight for my nation. If you can, please come and see where the Indian Army fought for your tomorrow. Okay then, it's time for me to join my clan of the Dirty Dozen. My assault party has 12 chaps. Best of luck to you all. Live life king size. Yours, Robin. Young Lieutenant Vijayan Thapar of the 2 Rajputana Rifle died assaulting 3 Pimples on the night of 28th and 29th June. The letter he wrote reached his parents after the news of his heroic death. His father, Colonel Thapar, came to Dras to fulfill his son's wishes and see for himself the place where his son and his colleagues of the 2 Rajputana Rifles gave up there today. After the capture of Tololing, the 2 Rajputana Rifles had rested for 10 days, after which they were brought in to capture the 3-Pimple Black Rock Knoll complex. This was to be the most difficult and most bloody battles fought in Dras. This battle was to see the maximum officer casualties in the entire 50-day war. Apart from Vijayan Thapar, his immediate senior Major Padampani Acharya and Captain Nekasaki Kengruzi from Nagaland were also to lay down their lives that night. The youngest casualty of the desert warriors, Vijayan Thapar, was steeped in the tradition of services, being a 4th-generation army officer.
In fact, I just met Colonel Thapar. He's an old course mate of mine. He lost his son Vijayant, and we were commissioned together. We joined the battalions together. We were in NDA together. And Vijayant Thapar is a 4th generation in the army.
Having seen just 6 months of service, the young lieutenant was only 22 years old. But even at this young age, he was very sure what he wanted.
Very, very enthusiastic youngster and a very idealistic man, that this is what is to be, this is what the nation should do, this is what I should do, this is what my father should do, this is what my mother should do, this is what my brother should do. He had a very idealistic view of the world and he lived by it. He thought, okay, this is my duty to go ahead, he will be there. You don't have to tell him that you be there. So he was that kind of a man. And he was a very good singer. I still remember that song, which is I think the favorite song of his, which would say, "Lovely Lips." I can't sing that song, but I still remember the way he used to sing that song. It was great.
Vijayan's preference of music were wide, but he was passionately attached to songs of the film Border.
You name it, he used to sing it. It's a Punjabi song, he'd sing a Punjabi song, Hindi, some pop, he'd do a Daler Mehndi type of Bhangra, switch on to something else, on to Border. Very fond of Border, that cassette.
Yeah, when we were in Myanmar, before we launched our first attack on Tololing, the only thing which used to play in his room was Border on full blast music. Every time he used to call us, "Sir, aa jao, yahan par ek baar gaane sunte hain aake." And the same song used to repeat again and again.
In the last week of June, with songs of Border blaring in the camp, the battalion was preparing for its next assault. The Karni Mata idol was brought out for worship. This idol is only brought out during war. The story goes that a soldier in the regiment found it in Mesopotamia during the Second World War. His company had been surrounded by the enemy on 3 sides. The remaining side was a huge minefield. That night, a soldier saw Karni Mata in his dream. The next morning, a little lamb appeared who led the entire company out of the minefield. At the edge of the fields, the lamb led them to a statue of Karni Mata. The soldier who found it used to hang it around his neck whenever the regiment went into battle. Since then, it has always been in the unit. It's worshipped during war, and when the soldiers go into battle, one of them carries it around his neck. The presence of the idol, the soldiers believe, is the reason why the two Rajputana rifles have never lost a battle.
It's a very old image. It was always carried into war. In fact, Madan Sahab used to carry it on his chest, like, he used to put it in a cover, red cover, and he used to literally carry it on his chest into the war field. It is always with the Alpha Company. Every evening, they used to have an aarti, and that time all the people from the Alpha Company and other companies used to come in there. Major Acharya was very prevalent. He used to say, Karni Mata ka bali chadega.
Major Padampani Acharya was an officer who went through life oozing confidence and charm. Bravery was second nature to him. In battle, he led from the front, inspiring his men with his naked courage. Acharya's exuberance touched all those who came in contact with him.
The main thing what we used to go about in our circles was, we used to like psyching some of the people who used to be ki little bit kya ho jayega ya nahi hoga, so we used to go and ask, hey, kya baat ban jayegi? And Major Acharya and Thapa used to ask. They had their helper, this Mukesh. तो मुकेश को तंग करते थे, वो जाते थे उनके पास, मुकेश क्या बात बन जाएगी, इसके बाद चल टाइगर हिल चलते हैं. तो मुकेश यूज्ड टू बी लाइक, साहब ये तो खत्म कर लेते हैं, उसके बाद सोचेंगे. एंड लाइक, साहब क्या साहब आप हमेशा पीछे पड़े रहते हो.
हाँ, मेरे को लगभग वो बोलते थे, बोला कि बात बन जाएगी. हमेशा मतलब आचार्य साहब और थापर साहब मेरे से हमेशा ये बोलते थे, मुकेश बात बन जाएगी क्या. मैं साहब बात जरूर बनेगी. बोला हमेशा मेरे को इस चीज़ से चिढ़ाते रहते, तो मेरे को खुशी भी बहुत होती थी इस चीज़ सुन के. बोला बात बन जाएगी. आचार्य साहब बहुत ही मतलब मजाकी आदमी थे, हरियाणवी भाषा तकरीबन बोलते रहते थे, बात बन जाएगी.
So obviously there's no captions for this video, but if someone wants to break it down in the comments, I would appreciate it. If not, then no worries.
ये हो रहा है छोरे, मतलब मजाक ही करते रहते तकरीबन.
The unit cook remembers him with great affection.
जब ट्रेकिंग करते आ जाते, बोला यार मिर्ची के पकौड़े खिला दो भाई हमारे को जट्टू. तो भाई अब तो ऐसा है कि याद वो जब बढ़ाते हैं, जब उनकी याद आती है क्या करें, और पकौड़े बनते हैं जब ये सर साहब हमारे को याद आते हैं, याद आ जाते हैं.
He was that one of those mercurial kind of a character who could inspire his men by his voice, and he had a very, very good voice and a very good delivery. In the last 50th anniversary of the Battle of Poonch, which we did, we made a small light and sound trying to depict what was the battle there, and he acted as the Sutradhar as to how he took the whole thing through. In the end, he gives a very, very powerful dialogue. I cannot reproduce it, but I think he lived by that dialogue.
गिरते हैं शाह सवार ही मैदान जंग में, वो तिफल क्या गिरेगा जो घुटनों के बल चले. अनवरत और निर्बाध चलना ही मेरी नियति है. कायरों से मेरा मेल नहीं, वीर पुरुष ही मुझसे कदम मिलाया करते हैं. गर्दम है बाजुओं में और जिगर में है फौलाद. तो ऐ दो राजरिफ के ओहदेदारों और जवानों, कर जाना कुछ ऐसा जिसका बखान करने मैं बार बार आऊं. हाँ, मैं समय हूं इस पलटन के त्रिकाल का. अलविदा.
Little did Acharya know that the sands of time would soon record his bravery and immortalize his acts of courage for the future generations that would come to his battalion. A few days before his death, sitting on the hill, Acharya was to tell his comrades a story that was to change their perspective of the war and reinforce their spirit of sacrifice. The Indian Army has inherited the buddy system from the British. When going into war, every soldier and officer has a buddy, and the two are supposed to look after each other. During the Second World War, in the Indian army that was retreating in Burma, there was a soldier called Ranjat. His buddy was fatally injured and dropped. When Ranjat heard of it, he asked his British officer if he could go back and try and retrieve his buddy. The officer refused, saying that he had seen the soldier getting shot and that he would already be dead. If you go back, he said, you will only get yourself killed. But Ranjat persisted and the officer gave in. Many hours later, Ranjat returned to his company, tired, injured and bleeding. After being nursed, the officer asked Ranjat, "Is your buddy dead?" Ranjat said yes. The officer then said, "See, I told you. You got yourself injured for no reason." Ranjat looked up at him and said, "No, sir, I had to go. When I reached him, he had some life left in him. He heard me, opened his eyes and smiled. He looked into my eyes and said, 'I knew you would come back for me.' He died on my lap with a smile on his face."
Well, that was a very touching story. And yes, that one soldier did get injured in his quest to find his battle buddy, but it was worth it. He was able to provide comfort to his battle buddy in his dying moments. And that alone just says a lot about the character of that soldier. In the U.S. Army, we also have battle buddies.
By the 27th of June, the attack plans for the Three Pimple, Knoll and Black Rock were finalized.
Once I was tasked, I carried out reconnaissance of the area. We had to go through a large amount of planning process because the information of terrain was scanty. Once we found the terrain information, and then we had to keep on changing our attack plan. And finally, we arrived at an attack plan where a company would attack in front and a company would go through the defenses, enemy defenses, and attack it from the rear. So the Alpha company led by late Major Acharya was chosen to attack the front, which we call the Knoll company, Knoll location. And then we went, the Mohit Saxena was tasked to go through the enemy defenses, almost about 300 meters in front of them, get through them, go behind the enemy defenses and attack them from the rear. So it was a very challenging task for that company to be able to go through enemy defenses, not get involved in the fight, go to their last location and start attacking it.
The assault started on the night of the 28th of June. Ravindranath had a sinking feeling as he bid his men farewell.
I said, "Okay, gentlemen, see you all tomorrow morning." I said it as I would, with my heart, hoping like hell that I will see all of them tomorrow morning. And but in the heart of heart, I was wondering, I do not know how many of us will see each other, whether I will be alive or whether these people will be alive to see anyone tomorrow morning. The complete area where we were was being shelled, and the attack had to go through. Just told my chaps, I told the company commanders, take your companies and get out of this place immediately, or else the attack is not going to go through. That itself was such a big morale booster for me that I am in command of troops who will dare death, who will stare in the eyes of death, and they won't bat their eyelids. That was the type of troops which I had, which I was commanding in this war.
The attack started badly, having initial casualties even before they left. Within an hour of the assault, the leading platoon was rendered ineffective.
Once the attack was progressed, Vijayan Thapar's platoon got hit very badly right in the beginning. So around about 9 o'clock at night, he was shelled very badly, and out of about 23 people he lost 2 people. About 12 were injured. So immediately Acharya told him, "Okay, you just regroup yourself and follow up in the end. I'll push up with another platoon which I had kept as reserve to you." So they all charged and they got hold of one bunker, and then there was another bunker which was 25 meters, which had a sort of a depression between them. One couldn't really charge from that bunker, and it is a very, very rocky area. These rocks are nothing. You can walk in this place. There you can't even walk. You had to go from one rock to other rock. Many of these rocks are very loose boulders, so you place your foot and the whole thing comes down. So that is the type of terrain where they were fighting. And then he gave me a report on the radio set. He says, "Sir, I have reached the top. There's one bunker holding on. I'll blast it with the RL, and now Knoll is taken."
But what had looked like an easy success at 11 p.m. turned into a bitter defeat very swiftly. Acharya charged the second bunker, giving up his life in this brave effort.
थ्री पिपल्स नॉल हिल पर अल्फा कंपनी का अटैक था। अल्फा कंपनी के कंपनी कमांडर थे पी आचार्य। और कंपनी 2IC थे लेफ्टिनेंट विजन थापर। तो जब हम ऑब्जेक्ट पे पहुँचे तो वहाँ पे दुश्मन से हमारी काफ़ी संघर्ष हुआ, काफ़ी मतलब लड़ाई हुई। तो हमने फर्स्ट में एक बैंकर ले लिया था। दूसरे बैंकर के लिए काफ़ी संघर्ष जारी था, दोनों तरफ से बहुत ज़्यादा फायरिंग हो रही थी। तो मेजर पी आचार्य के साथ हम 10 बंदे थे, मेजर पी आचार्य और सीनियर जेसीओज, 1 प्लाटून में प्लाटून कमांडर सिमनायक साहब। तो मेजर साहब ने बोला कि भाई अभी अटैक होगा, क्योंकि दुश्मन बहुत तादाद में फायर कर रहा था। तो हमने बोला कि साहब अभी फायर नहीं, मतलब अटैक नहीं हो सकता, अभी काफ़ी फायर है, आप थोड़ा पीछे आ जाओ। क्योंकि जितनी आड़ भी नहीं थी, मेजर साहब थोड़ा बैठे थे तो जो है ओपन में ही थे, जितनी आड़ नहीं थी वहाँ पर। तो मैंने उनको काफ़ी बोला भी, मेरे साहब सामने से फायरिंग बहुत आ रही है, आप थोड़ा पीछे आ जाओ। बोला नहीं अटैक होगा, अभी अटैक मारेंगे। तो हमारे जो सीनियर सरदार थे वो बोले ठीक है भाई ग्रेनेड आओ, ग्रेनेड फेंकते हैं। तो हमने 3 ग्रेनेड फेंके, जिसमें 2 ग्रेनेड फटे, वो सही जगह जाके फटे। एक ग्रेनेड उसमें से नहीं फटा। इतने में थोड़ी देर में ये दुश्मन का एक ग्रेनेड आया, वो बिल्कुल मेजर साहब जहाँ बैठे हुए थे वहीं आगे फटा, और उस फटने से मेजर साहब ख़त्म हो गए। और मान सिंह साहब जो थे सीनियर सरदार हमारे, उनको घायल हो गए, उनकी टांग में काफ़ी चोट आई। और एक ऑपरेटर था हवलदार चंद्रभान, उसकी बाजू पूरा उड़ गया था। तो फिर क्या है, काफ़ी मतलब अम्यूनिशन भी कम हमारे पास ख़त्म हो गया था, लेकिन हम लगातार दुश्मन से फायर कर रहे थे। थोड़ी देर में ही मतलब तकरीबन 1 घंटे बाद थापर साहब आए अपनी प्लाटून को लेके। और थापर साहब ने पूछा मेरे से, बोला कंपनी कमांडर साहब। मैं साहब कंपनी कमांडर साहब तो ख़त्म हो गए।
This fierce battle was also being observed by Major Ajit of the 16 Grenadiers.
On 28-29th night, when 2 Rajref was attacking 3 Pimple area, I was on listening on radio set because one of our officers, Captain Sangwan, was also accompanying the assault. The assaulting company was led by Major Acharya, and his company also was Lieutenant Thapar. I remember hearing Acharya when he cleared all the bunkers and he moved on to the last bunker, telling his CO that I'm waiting for my rocket launcher to come in and then blow out this bunker out of shape. And after that, there was a silence, and I think he tried to move up to the bunker and use his grenades to take off the bunker. But then he got injured. We could hear it on the radio set. And then his radio operator was saying, he said like, "Saab kuch ho gaya." He told his CO.
It took some time for a shocked company to inform the commanding officer of the loss of their commander.
So I asked the radio operator, where is Acharya? And then the senior GCO came on the radio set. So, Sahab, Acharya Sahab ab nahi rahe. Then that was a bloody shock to me. Then immediately Thapar came on the radio set. So Thapar in the meantime had been able to regather his section and move up. So he came to that place. I told him, okay, get control of the company immediately. The objective has been taken. We got to hold on to it with all we have. Because again, if we have to retake this, again we'll require a company and we'll suffer some more casualties. So just hold on to this.
Brimming with a desire to avenge the death of his company commander, Thapar, who shared a very close relationship with Acharya, whom he called Tau, charged the same bunker that took his friend's life. Meanwhile, the second attack led by Major Mohit Saxena and Captain Kengruze was not faring too well. The plan for their assault was very bold. They had been tasked to go through the enemy defences and attack from the back from a feature called the Lone Hill. This hill had a sheer 90-degree climb from the base. This route had been chosen because the enemy would never expect an attack from this area, as the route was so steep that climbing it was nearly impossible. Or so they thought. Captain Kengruze and his Ghatak commandos had attempted this climb for just those same reasons. A young Naga, this officer was one of the bravest officers in the entire battalion.
Nikuzuko, it's Kengruze, who was a Naga officer and a very religious man, a very quiet kind of a man with a very impish smile. Physically extremely tough, where none of us could go in these mountains, where we thought, no, you can't go along this path. He would just look right, left, and suddenly you would find Nibu, as we called him, on top. And we would ask him, how the hell did you reach there? He says, sir, that way, this way. I told him, come down, take me back through with you again. So he would take me back on when we went for reconnaissance. And he was that kind of a chap. And he was the leader of my Ghataks, the commandos we have. And his
Gut
action,
hacks.
the way he went about it, it reeks of
So the gut talk commando. Obviously, I'm probably saying that wrong. Apologies. I remember reacting to that in my military channel back a couple months ago. So these commandos are very similar to U.S. Army Rangers, and each Indian infantry company has a gut talk platoon attached to it.
bravery of the very highest order. He was a teacher before he joined the army, and he was an excellent teacher. When in the previous location where he was located near a school, when he was not fighting insurgents, he would go to the school and teach mathematics.
Truly a gentle soul, this young officer was a devout Christian who went to church every Sunday and said grace before every meal.
Nemu was intensely religious. He never drank, which is unlike any Naga I know. Then he never smoked. He was always correct. The best thing about him was he used to say grace before each meal that he ate. In fact, the night we attacked Black Rock, the four of us were together. That is Archie, Nemu, Vijayant and self. We were in the same tent. There was twice he had a small pub tent on top. There were just two pub tents before the attack, and it was raining that day. So Nemu had his puri and achar. Before having that, he said grace. He said it each time.
This gentle officer displayed a spirit and courage that was unparalleled. That night on the icy slopes of Lone Hill, it was his battle, his war, and his victory.
The climb was very tough. It was almost a vertical climb. We started climbing up, but seeing the degree of difficulty in climbing, Nemu said, sir, it's no use, I cannot climb with these shoes on because they're slipping. So he removed his shoes, he removed his socks, he started climbing up. He had an LMG with him. He went up to the top. It was barely 5 meters from the top when a burst hit him on his thigh. And there was another person called Havaldar Shravan Singh Sengar, who is also no more, and he's got a Sena medal. He advised him, sir, you should move down, and since you are badly bruised, it is better that you move down and take medical cover. But he said, no, at any cost, at no cost will I move down. I have to avenge the death of Havaldar Sultan Singh Sengar, who had died in the Battle of Tololing. Saying that, he started again climbing further ahead. But he had barely moved about a meter or so when he got a volley of bullets on his chest. And simultaneously, the enemy sitting on top started rolling down boulders. And I suppose it was the combination of the two because of which he tumbled down. I still remember that scene when he fell from top. 1, 2, 3. It was thrice he hit either it was his back or his face on the rock feature before he landed on the ground. And by that time he was no more. I salute Nemu for all this, and hats off to him for his bravery.
Imagine climbing up in minus 20 degrees, 15 to 20 degrees on top with wind chill. He must have known that even if he doesn't, nothing happens to him, he'll lose his feet because of frostbite and this thing. But yet he went up.
With the capture of Lone Hill, the battle swung in favor of Ravindranath.
The battle which I thought was slipping out of my hand suddenly swung in my favor, and by morning that whole the objective was captured by us.
The battle was over. The assault was successful. The hill was conquered. But the victory was solemn. There was no joy.
So that night the moon was rising. It was a late this thing. The moon was rising, full moon night, and it was a yellow moon. It was not a white moon. On top, it's the night. It's clear. It's crystal clear. There is absolutely, you can see for miles and miles, crystal clear. The moon rising. Archie's body, Vijayant's body, Anand, rifleman, Lance Naik with him, who also died. All three of them lying together, and the moon rays coming onto their face. Their bodies destroyed by the fire, and on top where we were in the bunker which we had captured, the Pakistanis had a sleeping bag. On top, all sleeping bags have feathers in it. So that sleeping bag was destroyed, and the feathers had they were all out. They were just flowing around the whole this thing. And Pakistani dead and unexploded mines, shines, the grenades and the cartridges. It made such a eerie sight that it's something that one can never forget. The moon rising, the rays on Archie's face, Vijay's face. They finally found peace. They finally found. They finally captured Naul against all odds.
Thapar leaves behind an aging grandmother, 2 old parents, and a young brother. Nimu's name meant greater happiness. This is what he gave his large family in Nagaland: happiness and joy, and finally pride. Acharya left behind a wife who gave birth to a beautiful baby girl 2 months after his death.
I personally feel that the people who did it are not with me to enjoy their fruits. And I feel that part of me has been taken off. I am not full. I don't know how long I'll take to overcome this feeling. Acharya, Thapar, Kangruze, and Vivek Gupta. Vivek Gupta was again very fond of his singing. And therefore, with Vijay Ramanan, were the life of any party we had. They would take on the dais with the wisecracks, with the songs, with music, and what have you. They were this heart of this battalion, and they would get us going all the time.
Raman, the sole surviving member of the jazz band, now whiles away the solitude by humming his comrades' favorite tune.
As Operation Vijay moved into its 6th week, the tide had turned very clearly in India's favor. Jaswant Singh, undoubtedly India's most successful foreign minister, had charmed every potential Pakistani ally into supporting the Indian stand. General Zinni, Commander-in-Chief of the United States Central Command, was sent to Islamabad to bring Parvez Musharraf to heel, even as Nawaz Sharif flew to Beijing to solicit support from Pakistan's closest ally. But despite the close relationship between the two neighbors, China failed to respond favorably to the Pakistani premier. In Washington, Gary Ackman, co-chairman of the Congressional Caucus on India, asked for Pakistan's name to be added to the annual list of state sponsors of terrorism. The World Bank suspended all payments of loans until the Pakistani army withdrew its forces to the line of control. In early July, as Nawaz Sharif prepared to travel to Washington, the Indian army was winning back peak after peak. While the Dras sector had seen significant gains, the 70 Infantry Brigade in Baitalik, which had moved in on the 8th of May, was still to make serious headway.
Operations in Baitalik sector were distinctive in most ways vis-a-vis the Dras sector. The intrusion was the largest, both in terms of the area intruded and the strength of the enemy that came in.
As per interrogation reports of the POWs captured by us, 6 to 7 companies of the Northern Light Infantry had occupied this sector. The area had the highest heights, ranging from 5,000 to 5,600 meters. The area was the remotest. The minimum walk required from the roadhead was 2 to 3 days. And that implied that a person who had once been inducted into this sector had to live off his rucksack with some replenishments for more than a month thereafter.
Highest peaks, jagged ranges, sharp cliffs, enemy-infested, inhospitable terrain. This was the Betalik sector. The 70 Infantry Brigade concentrated on long-term results. Discarding the strategy of frontal assaults where they would have to scale icy peaks in full view of the enemy, they decided to encircle the enemy, cut off their routes of supply from Pakistan, isolate them on heights, and then clear the peaks one by one. And once this happened, the Pakistani collapse was swift.
Operations in Betalik sector, notwithstanding the various constraints, were a spectacular success in that the enemy was routed from this sector completely by 8th or 9th of July. That is well before the political and the military negotiations had started.
One of the first success stories of Betalik was that of the 12 Jackalai. They had been moved to the area in May. After completing a successful tenure in Siachen, this battalion was on its way to Delhi when orders came reassigning them to the war front.
इस 50 दिन के जंग में हमारी बटालियन ने हमारे ब्रिगेड के लिए न केवल यालदौर और गनासौर एक्सिस को क्लियर किया, बल्कि यालदौर और गनासौर एक्सिस के दोनों तरफ जो सबसे ज़रूरी 2 पहाड़ियाँ थी, जो कि ब्रिगेड के ऑपरेशंस को आगे नहीं बढ़ने दे रही थी, वो दोनों पहाड़ियाँ 0.5203 और 0.4812 को हमने कैप्चर किया, जिससे कि दुश्मन को एलसी तक खदेड़ा जा सका और ब्रिगेड के आगे के ऑपरेशन सक्सेसफुल हो सके.
Once in Betalik, this unit moved out into enemy-held territory carrying large amounts of ammunition, but meager rations. The first success of the Jackalai was at 0.5203. An important feature, not only difficult to scale but also very difficult to hold, its top was in line of direct enemy fire from 0.5465.
न केवल पलटन की ही बल्कि पूरे फॉर्मेशन की जो सबसे पहली अहमियत वाली अचीवमेंट थी वो 0.5203 का कैप्चर था. 0.5203 के ऊपर कैप्चर में हमारे कंपनी कमांडर मेजर संजीव दत्त और उनके 2IC कैप्टन अमोल कालिया ने जिस रास्ते को चुना, उस रास्ते पर किसी फौजी के आने की शायद संभावना दुश्मन ने अपने सपने में भी नहीं सोची होगी, और यही कारण था जब पोस्ट के टॉप पर पहुंच गए तब तक पाकिस्तानीज़ को पता ही नहीं था कि यहाँ पहुंच चुके हैं. पर एक बार जब हमारी टुकड़ी वहाँ पहुँच गई, उसके बाद में पाकिस्तान के लिए मरने मारने वाली बात थी, जबकि कैप्टन अमोल कालिया और उसकी पूरी पार्टी पाकिस्तानी आक्रमण को खदेड़ते हुए इस जंग में शहीद हुए. और जो सर्वाइवर 2 नीचे आए हैं, उनके जो बयान है उसके हिसाब से कैप्टन अमोल कालिया पहले अपने पर्सनल वेपन से फायर किया, फिर LMG फायरर के घायल होने पर LMG से फायर किया, और लास्ट में जब MMG फायरर भी दुश्मन की गोली से शहीद हो गया तो उन्होंने खुद MMG फायर करके पाकिस्तान के 6 अटैक करने वालों को मार गिराया. और इस पूरे ऑपरेशन में हमें 16 पाकिस्तानी लाशें मिली, जिससे जाहिर होता है कि कितनी ज़रूरत थी इस पोस्ट को वापस पकड़ने के लिए पाकिस्तानीज़ को.
Now having successfully captured 5203, Balotia's men set their eyes on 0.4812. Intricate planning followed in an attempt to take the enemy by surprise. After a final meeting with their CO, the men gathered in an area called the MMG. No medium machine gun, this MMG stood for Masjid Mandir Gurdwara, a combined place of worship for these soldiers of the Jackalai who all belong to the Kashmir Valley.
1948 में जब पाकिस्तानी रेडर्स कश्मीर में श्रीनगर की तरफ बढ़ रहे थे तो शेख अब्दुल्ला के वॉलंटियर्स और लोकल वॉलंटियर्स ने जिन ग्रुप्स में वॉलंटरीली ऑर्गेनाइज होकर इन रेडर्स का मुकाबला किया था, ये रेजिमेंट उन्हीं के न्यूक्लियस से 48 के बाद में खड़ी हुई है। शुरू में इसको जेएंड के मिलिशिया के नाम से जाना जाता था, बाद में इसके बहादुरी के कारनामों को देखते हुए इसको रेगुलर आर्मी बना दिया गया और जम्मू एंड कश्मीर लाइट इन्फेंट्री का नाम दिया गया।
This Kashmiri force, half Muslim and half Hindu and Sikh, are sons of the soil, and their motivation in clearing the intruders from Kashmir is very personal.
This is precisely the reason that Jack-Lai troops have commitment to sort out Pakistanis much more than anybody else.
This religious composition not only stands firmly against Pakistani propaganda, but gives the rest of the country immense amount of hope about Kashmir. It sets shining examples of brotherhood for all of India as these troops fight together and pray together.
ये एक वाकई सीन देखने लायक होता है जब मौलवी, पंडित जी और ग्रंथी अपने अपने धर्म की पूजा कर रहे होते हैं और अपने अपने ऊपर वाले से पलटन की हिफाजत की बातें कर रहे होते हैं। यही कारण है कि किसी भी हमले में जाने से पहले मैं अपने जवानों को बताता हूँ, जिस फौज का रखवाला अल्लाह, ईश्वर और वाहिगुरु हो, उसको कोई बाल बांका नहीं कर सकता। और अपने बार बार के एक्शन से पलटन के जवानों ने इसको प्रूव कर दिखाया है।
The inherent faith this unit had in their motherland was India's most obvious defense against Pakistan's chance of jihad.
जहाँ तक जहाद का सवाल है, हमारी मुतबरक किताब कुरान पाक और हदीस के मुताबिक जहाद इन्हें उसके साथ हुक्म हुआ है फ़ी सबीलिल्लाह, इन्हें अल्लाह की राह में जहाद करना। उस जहाद के लिए तब हुक्म है अगर हमारे मज़हब को किसी भी किस्म का कोई ख़तरा हो। जहाँ तक पाकिस्तान का जहाद के नाम से हमारे
And unfortunately, that's where the video cuts off. It cut off just a few minutes into episode 7. There were actually 8 episodes, but Bayrat Hussein only has the first 6 published, unfortunately. And I do wish that subtitles had been available for that last episode or 2, because there were a few minutes of me just staring blankly at the screen, but that's okay, it is what it is. This docuseries was really amazing. It was thorough, but more importantly, it had the interviews of all the survivors, and I think that was just a brilliant move. It really personalized the war. It reminded us that the ones who fought and who were martyred are not just numbers. They were fathers, sons, uncles, brothers, and dads. As always, respect to all the fallen and martyred soldiers, plus the ones who did make it home. If you got any value from this video, I would really appreciate a like, a comment, a share, a subscribe, hit the thanks button, or just check out some more videos. If you missed my reaction to Shershaah, it's right here. Until next time, thanks for watching.